So the first thing that I do is when I find a song, I copy the link and I put it inside a downloader for YouTube to MP3. So once I've pasted it in, I click download. And as we want it as the background audio, we don't do any of the MP4s, we click MP3. I click download. So when the video is done, we click the folder and we move it to wherever you keep your songs. There you go. So now we can pull up Hitfilm and we can start a new project. I'm going to keep this as 60 FPS and just click OK. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and save as. Okay, once it's saved, now we can start importing our media. So we're going to start with a song. Okay, when that's done importing, what we can do is move it onto the track, but then let's move it down one to audio 2, as such. Okay, so now we're going to start importing the clips. So you can import your best clips and for the montage or the edit. Okay, once you have most of your clips down, don't worry, you can always add more if you realize you're a little too short on the clips. As a rule of thumb, you're going to want multiple kills in one clip and you're going to want to have them relatively close to each other. It's always good to spice things up, add a couple of one-taps in there instead of having really long clips, because long clips on a video can make the video somewhat dull, and it's good to have some really nice shots, even if they are only one kill clips, as long as you're not overdoing how many one kill clips you have. So firstly, you're going to want to listen to your music, you're going to want to check it's okay, but also you want to sort of imagine what your montage is going to look like beforehand. If it comes in really quickly, maybe you can sync it up with a one tap. There's going to be no velocity in this whatsoever, which makes montages really easy to make, and they should be fairly simple, but once you get the hang of slicing, trimming, should be a lot easier than having to do velocity as such as edits or something like that. Plus montages usually a lot longer in length.
Y'all niggas got me hot.
So in this case, I'm going to start off with a one tap because of the way it begins.
Y'all niggas got me hot.
So that's where I'm going to want the one tap to sync up with. I do have a few good one taps, so that's why I'm going to practice on one, see how it looks, and then if I don't like it, I can always switch in another one tap. All that I did was click the slice tool, and I just clicked over my cursor. So now what we're going to do is go back to the cursor, highlight that, click delete, move this to the front. So now we can see where the syncing and the timing comes up to.
Free there, both.
Okay, so we're a little too early, so it would be a good idea to move this back and perhaps slap on a fade to color. There you go.
Y'all niggas got me hot.
So again, now we're too early, too late even, and so we're gonna move it back slightly.
Free there, both.
Again, slightly further forward. Now what we can do is we can click this slide tool. We can try and get it on the dot. Okay, now we've got it on sync, we can just have a look how it looks all together so far. Don't forget to hit Ctrl and S to save your project. That way if something bad happens, if it crashes, you don't lose your progress. Okay, So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this further forward, so then that way there's a lot less of a delay in the audio. There you go. And then now we're going to highlight everything and move it across. So in this case I'm going to import another video because Ash has a hollow site in the same way Buck has a hollow site also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import this behind the video. We're going to find the clip. Okay, so now that I'm roughly near the clip, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it, I'm going to delete it and move it back. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewatch this clip back and see whether there are any similarities between the two. You'll see what I mean. So, right there and then, Buck is aiming right, he's leaned right, and he comes off into a run. So those are two possible transitions we can do. Let me look back to the Ash play here. Okay, so there it was. So obviously it's too soon because she's aiming to the right. So we're not going to transition to that. It would be too abrupt, like I said. So in this case, where she's running about here, her gun is off to her right, which we can mimic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it right here, and then move back to the Buck clip and try and trim there. So I'm slightly going to overshoot and move there. And then move your clip back, your second clip. Now you can directly compare the two. So I do kind of want his gun to be low just like hers, so if I try there, split that, highlight and delete, move that there, use the left and right frame by frame keys. So I'm going to try here, see whether it lines up, move it back. Now you can directly compare. So now I can see that Buck's gun is too far left in comparison to Ash's, which is slightly more forward. So what I'm going to have to do is cut it here instead. That way the two look fairly similar. And hopefully, there you go. And let's see that back.
Yeah. Nah, niggas got me hot.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten the time of the Ash clip. It simply takes too long. Now that the music's speeding up, you want to make your clips almost match that. You want to make the clips fairly quick. Unlike the Buck one, which was at the beginning, you wanted it to be slow as an intro clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten this clip. So as I was saying, this sort of timing is correct. So what you do is you listen out for the next change in the beat. As you can see there, as the scene changes, so does the music. It's slightly off, as you can see, because of the waveforms. However, even if you're just a little bit out, it doesn't matter too much. So in this case, sadly, it takes too long just to kill Capcan there. So I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. However, as a rule of thumb, you don't want to speed up the gunshots because it makes it sound weird, and it's also blatantly obvious that you've gone and sped it up. So in this case, we're going to speed up her aim down sights or her peeking. So in this case, I'm going to do the aim down sights. So you can always keep an eye out on the ammo capacity there. That's what I like to do. That way you can tell when they shoot and when they're not shooting, especially when you can't hear the gunshots and they may only have a slight flash. In this case, you can't even see that she's shot, but actually she has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress this. So once I've sliced to the left and to the right, and click the rate stretch tool, I'm going to shift that in slightly. And I'm going to push that in and see how it looks. So unfortunately it's just too fast, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the entire scene shorter, obviously before the gunshots. So there I'm going to slice. I'm going to save my clip and I'm going to make the rate stretch slightly shorter. Okay, so she kills him somewhat on time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change up the movement without using any velocity, just using some quick cuts, which is fairly easy, but I'm going to have to sync them to the music. So now that I've found the next beat, I'm going to slice. I'm going to move the clip to the point where you can still see the dead body, and you still want to be able to see the gun. So just going to delete that and see how it looks. Okay, so it doesn't look too bad. Again, it matches, so we're just going to leave that how it is, and the next one seems to be here. So again, we're going to slice. We're going to keep it moving about there. We're going to see how that looks. So it seems a little fast, so let's just watch it back. Yeah, so it's definitely too quick, and so I think there needs to be a lot more time lingering on this one frame. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to delete there, delete that one, and move it across. Now we're going to make a lot of quick cuts that move us to the door a lot faster. Now let's try and watch this back. Okay, so that was perfect, because not only did it cut around the same time that we wanted it to, but it also got the kill on the timing that we wanted it to as well. So again, like I said, this doesn't take a lot of velo. It takes syncing with this audio too, which is the song. So as you can see, there's a cut there where there's a spike in the volume. Here again, there's a dip in the volume, and then there's a sudden spike. That's where we trim again. In the middle here, that's just where I heard it, so I went and did that again. That was solely by audio, and theoretically there should be one here. However, it's more to do with how you hear it, especially if you're on target and it sounds wrong, then change it. Again, as you can see, my frame rate's sort of dipping on this, so if you struggle with your frame rate and it's difficult to see it, I always recommend clicking export, go to content, and then you export the video and you watch it there. It takes longer and it takes up a bit more space, but that way you can truly visualize what your clip is going to look like, what your montage is going to look like. Okay, so again, there's a sort of a transition point here that we could do. So unless we were to speed up the video and have Ash run through, I'm pretty sure she does die at this point, so what would be a good transition is if there's some sort of explosion that goes off in the next clip after it. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and sync up Ash running through the door, being exploded around this point. So it's going to be quite a tricky one, but if it's pulled off well, it'll look good. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to find an actual explosive kill. So in this case I have one with Zafir, and someone walks by and he so happened to shoot one of her projectiles at him. So when I find the section, I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to just go ahead and slice it in front of the time that I want the kill to be shown. Again, I'm going to delete, move it back. Don't forget to save. So in this case you do want the action to be almost cut in half. When Ash dies, it transitions to another explosion happening. Okay, so in this case I decided not to have both explosions. So in this case Ash dies and the explosion isn't nearly as big, so in the same way you kind of want to replicate it with the other video you have. So as you can see, the dissipation of the red is very quick, instead of it lasting a long time. It's not too obvious, it's quite subtle, and that's sort of what you want. So again, we're going to see the beat here change. So instead of Zafir having to switch out her weapon and it take too long, we'll see it come back quite quickly. So what I'm going to want to do is reduce the delay between the time that this gun goes down and the new gun comes up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rate stretch about there. So the video is a little too short, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Ctrl Z and I'm going to undo it and see what the timing is like without it. So again, it doesn't change too much, so actually it should be okay if we slow it down at points. So what I've done is I've clipped either side, and I'm just going to rate stretch and elongate that and make it longer.
Niggas tell me how. Niggas tell me how.
So again, it's slightly too early and it makes it look like the character of Castle is moving way too slowly. So what I'm going to do is make it definitely seem like it's in slow motion, instead of it looking like he's just walking.
Niggas tell me how. Niggas tell me how. Niggas tell me how.
Hopefully this illustrates my point. what consists in a montage is up to you. You can change up your transitions. You don't have to do transitions. However, it usually makes it more entertaining. You want to vary your clips. You don't want to have loads and loads of 3Ks after 3Ks or 4Ks. You might want to spice things up a bit. Include a one tap in there. Add a good transition. Add some effects if you wanted to. However, these usually take still a decent amount of time, but nowhere near as long as edits, so they are quite fun to do. So this wraps up the tutorial, and hopefully next tutorial can be about how to mask and how to add little effects if you wanted to in a montage. So yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment.